everybody, Jonathan here, and I just got home from seeing Madam Web. I have to tell you guys, my expectations for this movie were so low. Because, of course, it's another Sony movie where they're trying to skirt around the fact that Spider-Man has nothing to do with it, but this one is egregious. I have to say, I think it literally may be the worst movie I've ever seen in a theater. Now, don't get me wrong, I've seen some bad movies, and I've also seen some bad superhero movies, but a lot of those I saw on streaming or on DVD later. I'm talking about movies that I gave my hard-earned money to a theater for to see. And yes, I did see Fan Four Stick in theaters, and it was worse than that. I saw Morbius in theaters. So yeah, I've seen a lot of bad superhero movies in theaters, and I legitimately think that this is the worst one. Now, let me start to break it down for you. Really, there's nobody out there that's hoping, or was hoping, for a Madam Web movie, specifically one that has nothing to do with Spider-Man. So right from the get-go, just the existence of this movie makes absolutely no sense. That being said, if you look in the trailers, there were a couple different versions of, Spider-Girls and Spider-Women with the other three characters, and we're going to get into that in just a second. I'm going to stay spoiler-free for just one more minute here. If you have already purchased tickets to this movie and it's not too late to get a refund, get the refund. This movie is absolutely awful. It is a waste of your 2 hours, and there's literally only one redeeming thing I can think about, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. So, cannot recommend staying away from this movie enough. Wait for streaming if you're going to see it, and even then, I think it's worth skipping your 2 hours. Okay, with that being said, we are getting into spoilers right now. So, the one redeeming thing about this movie are the action sequences with Ezekiel Sims. This is not about the character Ezekiel Sims. I just think it's cool to see, like, Spider-Man, if you will, in kind of a bad guy element in live action. So it's cool to see Spider-Man's skill sets, of course, not counting web shooting, just like the agility and wall crawling, but used for nefarious means. I don't necessarily condone his actions, of course, that's not what I'm getting at, but more so, it's just kind of cool to see Spider-Man's abilities used in a villainous way. Beyond that, I literally cannot think of anything praiseworthy in this movie. The way it's shot is super weird. The way that it cuts back and forth through, like, her future premonitions, it's done pretty well, but, when you've seen a masterpiece like Memento, there are more creative ways to do, future and past callbacks and things of the sort. So, gotta say that right off the bat. The acting by everybody across the board is very stiff, very hollow, not a ton of chemistry. The three Spider-Girls, if you can even call it that, because we see them in their suits in a flash forward that Ezekiel Sims has in a dream, but then we don't actually see them suited up as the Spider-Women until the last 2 minutes of the movie, and even then, the action is pretty subpar, so they definitely did a huge bait and switch with the marketing. There are basically no superheroes in this movie for 97% of the runtime, so you're getting bait and switched right from the get-go. Now, that being said, I was talking about the acting performances. Not a lot of great performances here. Adam Scott is playing Adam Scott, and he's fine, but he doesn't have a lot of meat on the bone to work with here, unfortunately. Beyond that, let's just get right into our protagonist, right? Madam Web, Cassie Webb, played by Dakota Johnson. I've got no hate for Dakota Johnson as a person, but unfortunately, this role is just... there's nothing there. Now, if you're watching this, we're in spoilers, so you've either seen the movie or you don't care about spoilers. So, that being said, her character is absolutely deplorable. When you have a protagonist of a movie, generally speaking, you want that protagonist to be, likable or empathetic, and I couldn't help but think of the Michael Douglas movie Falling Down. Michael Douglas is one of my favorite actors ever, but in that movie, he is the protagonist per se, but you're not exactly supposed to agree with everything he's doing or like it. You're watching a guy at the end of his wits just snapping and going crazy against society. When you're watching Falling Down, you're not supposed to be rooting for him. It's more of a character study of watching his descent into madness. When you're going into Madam Web, which is a superhero movie, or at least it's trying to be, you probably want your protagonist to be somebody that, you can look up to. Or, you hear a lot of talk in superhero movies about people being able to see themselves in superheroes. Well, I would think, if a little girl was going to see a Madam Web movie, she would want to be like Madam Web, right? Generally considered somebody morally upstanding. In this movie, I'm not so sure. I made a list of all the crimes that Madam Web commits in this movie, and yes, they're crimes that get her toward her goal of protecting the three girls, but still, I want to come back to this. Listen to all the crimes that she commits, and these are just the ones I could remember as the credits scroll. There may have been more. So she steals a taxi, she kidnaps three teenage girls and takes them into the forest, then leaves them there alone, not giving them any way back to society or really giving specific, directions when she's coming back. She just says she'll be back in a couple hours. She later takes the taxi that she stole and drives it into a diner, crashing through the front door, destroying property and destroying the taxi that she stole. Later, she steals an ambulance. I get that she's a paramedic, but she still stole an ambulance for her own needs. And then she takes the three girls that she kidnapped into an abandoned firework factory or something like that and commits grand arson by blowing up this entire fireworks factory. And yeah, she literally demolishes a building, destroys the property of whoever owned those fireworks. And yes, Ezekiel Sims is sort of a villain. He's the antagonist, but yeah, he is trying to kill the girl. So yeah, he is a villain, but she kills somebody. She kills Ezekiel Sims. And then when all of that is said and done, throughout the movie, we've heard things about where there's police warrants out for her for the, crimes she's been committing. But then she gets checked into the hospital. She goes blind. And, she does become bound to her wheelchair, kind of like the actual Madam Web from the comics. But she's just, let go into society. And she has this really cool penthouse overlooking New York City. How is that even a thing? She's literally a criminal. I just laid out all of those crimes and perhaps more that she committed in the movie. She just gets off scot-free and gets this amazing penthouse overlooking New York City. That's insane. Anyways, that's just about all I've got to say about her character. I do think that the bait and switch was absolutely ridiculous, where in the marketing and the posters, we see, Madam Web in her, if you can even call it a super suit, you barely even see that. But you see the three teenage girls as their various versions of Spider-Woman and Spider-Girl. Yeah, you don't see any of that in the movie. Basically, Ezekiel Sims has a future premonition dream that keeps haunting him of these three girls as the Spider-Women killing him. But that future never comes true, so his premonition and his reason to kill these girls literally was just a recurring nightmare and not something that was actually going to happen, which is just yeah, he was literally just trying to kill these girls. I'm blanking on the movie that's about, predicting future crimes. I'm on a roll. I'm at 8 minutes straight and haven't done a single cut yet, so I'm just going to keep rolling. But, yeah, so then we see them suit up as the Spider-Women at the end, but we have no idea how they got their abilities, why they got their abilities. At least with Spider-Man getting his abilities, it's let's just go with Toby, right? The spider bites him, he's got his motivation from Uncle Ben's killer, he's got his motivation fighting Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin. We've got all kinds of Spider-Man iterations, but these three girls just get their spider powers somehow. It's mind-blowing. Also, the amount of trauma these girls would have of, nearly being killed on the subway, being abducted by some strange 30-year-old woman, having to go to this house of this stranger, Ben Parker, to stay with the friend of this 30-year-old woman while Ben Parker's sister, future Aunt May, whatever, is going to give birth to this child. Then you gotta rush to the hospital. Anyways, the amount of trauma those three teenage girls would have is life-alteringly bad. That being said, I am kind of rounding the bases for home here. I legitimately do think this is the worst movie I've ever paid to see in theaters, and, my knee-jerk, especially staying within the superheroes realm, is yeah, but Fan 4 Stick was really bad. Well, the thing about that is, at least you're still kind of seeing, the Fantastic Four. When I paid to see Fantastic Four, I went to see Doctor Doom, Reed Richards, Sue Storm, so on and so forth, and I did get to see them, even if they were terrible, terrible versions. Well, I paid to see Madam Web, and she's not Madam Web, at least the version that I know from the comics and cartoons and all that. Okay, well, if I don't get to see her, I saw all of these Spider Women in the commercials, so, you know, what about that? Well, they're not in the movie either, so it's like, I got bait and switched in the movie. Like, what I was hoping to see based off of the commercials isn't even remotely accurate to what you see in the movie. So that's awful. And of course, the other knee jerk is like, yeah, well, Morbius was terrible. But the same point rings true, right? When I paid to see Morbius, although I kind of regret it, I paid to see Michael Morbius become a living vampire and do crazy crap. And he did that. It was a bad movie, but at least I got what I paid for. With this, I don't feel like I got that at all. There are no post-credit scenes other than mangling the "with great power comes great responsibility" line. There are no connections to the greater Spider-Man universe. Yes, May Parker, future... well, actually, no, not May Parker. I messed up when I said that earlier. Mary Parker, the mother of Peter Parker. We do see Peter Parker get born. There's Uncle Ben, I guess. But, like, that, you know, seeing a baby Spider-Man doesn't count as, like, a connection. That's so dumb. It's so dumb. So, yeah, I feel like I've kind of made all the points I was hoping to make. I will say there is so much ADR in this movie. If you don't know what that is, that's where, like, they go in and dub over a voice afterward. Sometimes you do that because, like, the audio quality picked up on set wasn't good. Other times it's because, like, the take doesn't flow as well. But I'm convinced that the actor who played Ezekiel Sims didn't say hardly any of his lines on set. All of it seemed like ADR. The random guy that shows up in the jungle to take Madam Web into, like, the spider pool where she was born, I think most of that guy's lines were ADR'd. And one other thing I'm going to say, if you're watching this spoilers review and you're just hearing me say these random things and it sounds insane, I'm literally... there's no way I could make this up. This movie is so off the wall. It's so bad. It's so weird. Literally cannot recommend it. 1 out of 10. The only positive thing I can say is, you know, the Ezekiel Sims, not Spider-Man, has some cool action scenes that are, like, alright. And I guess the only other positive I can say is that the popcorn was pretty good at the theater, but that's independent of the movie. So I'm going to go ahead and hang my hat on this. 1 out of 10 stars. Cannot recommend this under any circumstance. Literally, unless you are sick in bed, bored, and you've seen every other superhero-related movie, and you can watch this for free on streaming in the future. That's, like, the only scenario I could think to watch this. It's not even so bad it's good, like Morbius is. Like, it's just so bad it's bad. It's a waste of 2 hours, and I really wish I could say more positive about it, but you know me. I'm always talking positive here on the channel, and I literally can't think of anything positive to say about this movie. So, if you've seen Madam Web, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. I am going to do a LEGO custom showcase, although I really don't want to, but I do it for every superhero movie, so this one's going to be no exception. Stay tuned for that. Hope to see you guys on a video soon. Be good out there, and talk to you later.